Welcome, seekers of history, to a tale of divine wrath. Today we witness the ultimate clash of beliefs. Imagine the mightiest empire on earth, bathed in pure gold. Pharaoh ruled as a living god among mortal men, yet its downfall came not from armies, but from two frail old men. They brought a wooden staff and a mighty prophecy. What followed was a dreadful descent into pure darkness. The rivers ran red, and skies were shadowed by locusts. How did a single voice shatter the pride of Egypt? Prepare yourselves for the terrifying, ancient plagues. We stand in the 13th century, before the birth of Christ. The new kingdom of Egypt is at its great apex. Across the vast Nile delta, monuments of stone pierce the sky. The nation thrives on the toil of uncounted slaves. The young Pharaoh sits upon his towering golden throne. He is the son of Ra, an untouchable deity. Suddenly, the royal court falls into a heavy silence. Two figures emerge from the shattered palace shadows. Moses and Aaron step onto the polished marble floor. They wear rough wool, a stark contrast to fine white linen. 80 years of exile have carved deep lines in Moses' face. But his dark, intense eyes remain fiercely unyielding. He grips a simple shepherd's staff in his weathered old hands. It is a weapon of pure faith, not of sharp iron. Pharaoh looks down from his towering and brilliant gold seat. The monarch wears the sacred crown, adorned with a snake. The Hebrew prophet speaks with a voice like rolling thunder. Let my people go, so they may serve their Lord in peace. A cold and mocking laugh echoes throughout the palace halls. Who is this Lord, that I should obey his unseen voice? For Pharaoh, there is no authority above his own. He commands the earth, the waters, and the blazing hot sun. The Egyptian courtiers sneer at the ragged old outcasts. How could a slave's god challenge the mighty Egyptian force? To prove his words, Aaron throws down his heavy wooden staff. Before their eyes, the lifeless wood twists into a snake. The royal magicians step forward with dark amusement. With secret chants, they summon their own slithering serpents. They match the miracle to protect their king's divine pride. Yet Aaron's serpent swiftly swallows the others whole. Despite this omen, the king's heart remains stubborn and so hard. He dismisses the prophets with a wave of his hand. According to ancient texts, this arrogance seals his doom. The battle lines are drawn between heaven and the earth. If you held absolute power over millions of frail lives, would you ever yield to a mightier, unseen force? The next morning, the Pharaoh walks by the sacred Nile stream. Moses is waiting there, unyielding as a mountain. A second warning is given, but again it is ignored. Aaron lifts the weathered staff and strikes the gentle waves. Instantly, the great river turns to a dark crimson flood. The water becomes a toxic, horrific nightmare. The fish perish in pain, floating white on the ruined streams. The people cannot drink. Thirst begins to choke the land. This is a direct blow against Hapi, god of the Nile. The Hebrew Lord is breaking their gods, one by fearful one. Yet the court magicians use their dark arts to taint a bowl. Pharaoh smirks, believing this is merely a cheap trick. He turns his back on the suffering of his subjects. The Crimson River flows for 7 agonizing days. The Defiance only invites a new wave of horror. Moses stretches his hand over the dark, rotting waters. Millions of slimy frogs emerge from the muddy riverbanks. They invade the temples, the streets, and the royal beds. Heket, the frog goddess of birth, has become a cursed plague. The palace is overrun by the croaking madness now. Pharaoh begs Moses to remove the foul amphibians. He promises to let the Israelites go to the desert. The next day, the frogs perish, leaving piles of lifeless husks. The foul scent of decay fills every corner of the realm. But once relief comes, the king's arrogance returns in full force. He breaks his royal word and locks the city gates tight. The Lord strikes again, without warning or mercy this time. Aaron strikes the dry dust of the earth with his dreadful staff. The dust transforms into swarms of vicious, biting little gnats. They torment both man and beast with unending agony. The magicians try to copy this, but they fail completely. They whisper to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." But reason cannot pierce a heart hardened by false greatness. Pharaoh sits isolated, deaf to his people's pleas. A massive cloud of flies descends on the glorious city. It spares only Goshen, where the Hebrews dwell in pure peace. This targeted strike proves the absolute power of Moses' God. The Egyptian deities are shown to be weak and blind. The swarms ruin the food and drive the citizens mad. Again, the desperate Pharaoh falsely promises freedom. The flies vanish, but the monarch's heart turns to heavy stone. His relentless pride pushes the nation closer to ruin. A dire pestilence sweeps across the grazing pastures now. Horses, donkeys, camels, and cattle fall into the dust. The wealth and military might of Egypt waste in the fields. But the livestock of the Israelites remains untouched. Historical records note the severe economic blow. Without beasts of burden, the empire begins to crumble fast. Yet Pharaoh inspects the damage with a furious gaze. He refuses to surrender to a ragged shepherd. Moses then takes soot from a furnace and throws it in the air. The ash spreads like a curse across the weeping Egyptian sky. Terrible sores erupt on the skin of every citizen. The agony is unbearable, stripping away all pride. The royal magicians fall to their knees in the grand hall. Covered in painful sores, they cannot even stand up straight. Their magic is broken, their authority turned to pure ash. Pharaoh watches his greatest scholars writhing on the floor. Even in the face of this grotesque and painful suffering, the king's madness deepens. He chooses ruin over defeat. Moses raises his staff toward the heavens once again. A terrifying storm gathers over the golden city. Deafening thunder shakes the foundations of the monuments. Massive hailstones mixed with blazing fire rain from the clouds. The fire dances on the ground, burning crops and shattering trees. The flax and barley fields are utterly destroyed in hours. Those who ignored the prophet's warning are crushed in the fields. The wrath of the heavens is merciless and absolute. Pharaoh summons Moses while the storm rages outside the walls. Trembling, he confesses his sins and begs for the hail to stop. Moses extends his hands, and the violent storm ceases at once. Silence returns, but the damage to the land is immense. If you were an Egyptian citizen watching your world burn, would you still follow a king who brings only destruction? As soon as the skies clear, Pharaoh's false repentance fades away. His heart hardens like the stone of his broken monuments. Moses returns, his voice echoing in the ruined palace. He warns of a plague that will devour the remaining green. The courtiers finally break down in sheer panic and dread. They beg Pharaoh, "Do you not realize that Egypt is ruined?" But the monarch's pride blinds him to the pleas of his own men. He tries to negotiate, offering only half freedom. Moses rejects the compromise and stretches out his old hand. An east wind begins to blow across the devastated land. It blows all day and all night, carrying a black, humming cloud. A swarm of locusts, denser than any seen in history. They cover the surface of the earth until the ground is black. They devour every leaf, every fruit spared by the cruel hail. Not a single green thing remains on the trees or in the fields. The breadbasket of the ancient world is left completely bare. Famine grips the throat of the once mighty civilization. The people weep in the streets, starving and fully crushed. Pharaoh hastily calls for Moses, admitting his grave fault. The west wind carries the locusts into the crashing Red Sea. But the cycle of arrogance and deception goes on. The king's heart is locked in a reckless, blind defiance. The 9th plague requires no warning, only a silent gesture. Moses points his hand toward the bright and blazing desert sun. Instantly, a darkness that can be felt smothers the entire land. It is a thick, terrifying void that swallows all the light. This is the ultimate insult to Ra, the great sun deity. The highest power of Egypt is rendered completely blind. For 3 days, no one can see another or leave their own bed. The empire is paralyzed by a supernatural fear. They sit in the dark, hearing the wails of the hungry. Meanwhile, the Israelites have bright light in their dwellings. Scholars view this darkness as a symbol of spiritual ruin. The golden age of the pharaohs has been eclipsed forever. Enraged, the king summons the prophet one final time. He agrees to let them go, but demands their flocks stay behind. Moses stands firm in the gloom, refusing to leave a single hoof. "We need sacrifices for our Lord," he declares boldly. Pharaoh's patience shatters into 1,000 pieces. His face twists into a mask of pure, unrestrained hatred. He points a trembling, dirty finger at the old man's calm face. "Get out of my sight! Make sure you never see my face again. The day you see my face, you will surely perish," he screams aloud. The threat echoes through the crumbling pillars of the dark room. Moses does not flinch. His eyes reflect a cold and tragic truth. He looks at the broken tyrant with a chilling calmness. "Just as you say," Moses replies, his voice like a sealing tomb. "I will never look upon your angry face ever again." With those fateful words, the prophet turns his back on the monarch. He walks out of the ruined palace, leaving only shadows. The court is left in deep despair and heavy silence. The ministers know that a final, crushing blow is coming. The air grows cold as night falls over the ruins. A sense of impending doom wraps tightly around every soul. Moses gathers his people in the safety of Goshen. He gives the final, terrifying instructions to them. They must sacrifice a lamb without any flaws. They must paint a crimson sign on the doors of their humble homes. Tonight, the Lord will pass through Egypt in wrath. The firstborn of every house without the mark will surely fall. From the firstborn of Pharaoh to the firstborn of the captive, no one will escape this devastating, divine judgment. In the palace, the Pharaoh sits alone in the dark. His stubborn pride has led his people to a tragic ruin. He grips his golden crook, a symbol of broken power. He still refuses to believe his own son is in danger. The tension is heavy, a crushing weight upon the chest. The clock ticks to midnight, bringing the angel of doom near. The contrast is stark. Crimson doors versus golden gates. Faith and obedience stand against arrogance and power. Mothers in Goshen hold their breath, clutching their children tight. The silence of the night is about to be torn by screaming. This is the climax of the greatest ancient battle. The gods of Egypt have been dismantled and humiliated. Only the final, heartbreaking judgment remains to be dealt. The cost of tyranny will be paid with the tears of sons. As midnight approaches, a cold wind sweeps through the quiet streets. The shadow of the Almighty falls on the doomed nation. The verdict is sealed. The history of the world is forever changed. The cries of Egypt will echo through eternity tonight. Deep inside the crumbling royal palace walls, the terrified queen holds her precious firstborn son closely. She whispers desperate prayers to the ancient Egyptian gods, but the stone idols remain completely silent. Outside the heavy palace doors, the elite royal guards stand ready with their sharp and deadly bronze weapons. But no amount of military strength can ever stop an invisible and devastating divine judgment. The Israelites remain safely hidden in their small, humble homes, painting fresh crimson upon their doorways. The roasted lamb is eaten in haste as they wait for the terrible judgment to finally pass over. History will forever remember this dark night as the devastating climax of human arrogance. The mighty empire that built the pyramids is now crumbling beneath a crushing spiritual weight. Pharaoh's fierce and relentless pride has transformed his golden kingdom into a massive and tragic graveyard. All the dark magical tricks of the royal court have been completely burned away by absolute power. Moses stands firmly by the edge of the ancient city, looking back at the doomed capital of slavery. He knows that by tomorrow morning, The heavy chains of oppression will finally be broken in pieces. But the terrible cost of this miraculous freedom will be measured in the tears of mourning families. A dreadful stillness falls over the monuments as the final hour of judgment rapidly arrives. The ancient gods of the Nile have been utterly defeated, their statues cracked and covered in thick ash. It is a powerful story of liberation and terror, echoing through the long corridors of time. The battle of magic is over. The brutal reality of punishment is now fully revealed. 9 dreadful plagues have struck, yet his heart remains like stone. The ultimate devastation is drawing very near. An angel of doom strikes tonight. What must they do to survive this dreadful Passover? Tell us your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this epic tale, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe for more ancient history content.